Welcome to Mind of the Forest, a podcast of the Louisiana Forestry Association. I am your host, Jeff Zeringue. In Mind of the Forest, we talk about forestry and how important it is to have managed forests, as well as the many aspects about the forest products industry. Forest landowners, loggers, and wood manufacturers, such as lumber, pellet, and paper mills, all play an important role in the conservation and management of forests for the important renewable natural resource it is. Managed forests offer more for wildlife and water protection. That's why the LFA advocates to keep forests as forests. This episode of Mind of the Forest is sponsored by First South Farm Credit. First South is your premier rural lender. With over 100 years financing timber and agriculture, they have the expertise you're looking for when financing rural property. If you're looking to purchase or refinance land, call your local First South Farm Credit Office, or you can find them online at firstsouthland.com. This is episode 52 of Mind of the Forest, and our guest is Jackie Harvey. Jackie is the owner of The Shades, which is a tree farm in West Feliciana Parish, and she's also the 2024 Outstanding Louisiana Tree Farmer. The Shades has been in Jackie's family for more than 200 years. Quite an accomplishment, really. There's a lot of history there. We're going to talk to Jackie about that, including this tree farm being the backdrop of a movie starring John Wayne. We would like to welcome Jackie Harvey. Jackie is the 2024 Tree Farmer of the Year for the Louisiana Forestry Association. Last year we had a great time celebrating y'all at the annual convention at the Golden Nugget, and today we just want to visit again, talk about The Shades. Is a tree farm that has been associated with your family for more than 200 years.
Correct.
That is extraordinarily unusual to have land passed down and kept in the family for that long. Can you tell us a little bit about how the land first got acquired?
Yes, sure. So my ancestors, the Scots, came from Scotland, big surprise there, and actually received a Spanish land grant for this property. And so they moved, and it was nothing but a large piece of completely wooded over land that they had to explore and figure out the spot where they wanted to put their home and start a life there. And there was absolutely nothing in the vicinity. And so this is how it went. And over time, the house was built and the properties remained in the same family, where I'm more of a distant relative. My father came along after World War II and came to help a cousin who was the last descendant of the Scott family.
Wow.
She was still living in the home. She was an elderly lady who needed help in managing the property. And so my dad moved from California, had a very large life change. And that's kind of where it sort of passed down from there to me. And now it will eventually go to my children.
So you grew up in California?
Oh, no. My dad grew up in California.
Your dad grew up in California?
Yes.
Okay.
No,
How old were you when they came to here, to Louisiana?
Oh, no. My dad came shortly after World War II.
Oh, shortly after World War II.
Shortly
okay.
after World War II,
I
dad
missed the time.
Yes, my dad had fought in World War II and came back and really was going through some difficult times and needed a change in his life, and he found a really big one.
That
he
talk
became
about
a farmer.
Culture shock. Yeah. Well, that's true. Well, I just want to make sure to apologize. I didn't want to insinuate that you were born right after World War II. She was a much, much younger woman
Oh, my goodness.
than you would imagine. So, so your dad moves to Louisiana and establishes a family, becomes a farmer.
Yes.
And do you remember some of the old stories that he would tell you about his first time in Louisiana?
I think it was a very big adjustment. He lived a very different lifestyle when he was in California. He loved to go listen to big bands at the Hollywood Palladium, and he would go out in LA with his friends and just have a wonderful time. And then he moved to the woods. So
talk about a shock.
It was a very big culture shock for him.
Yeah.
But he took to it. I think it was the change of pace that he needed at that point to sort of move on with his life and begin anew. And so that's I didn't hear a whole lot about his life before then,
Yeah.
but he definitely established himself in the community, became very well known. He was not a man who would hold his tongue. So there was very little of a filter. So if you met him, you either loved him or disliked him strongly. There was not a whole lot of in between.
It seems like he has fallen in love with the land, though.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. He came and just felt a kinship with the property and instantly loved Eva Scott, who was his cousin. They instantly connected because she was a hard old bird, and he and he responded well to that. So he sort of took over in her footsteps of being the one who was, being hard on taking care of everything, and the woods and the dairy and the horses and everything else that went along with the farm at the time.
Well, I imagine the way you describe her, that she probably appreciated the fact that there was some family willing to come back and keep it going.
Oh, absolutely. She had reached a point when her health was starting to falter, and I think it was sort of a crossroads for her and for him as well. So their lives intersected at the right time. So it worked out very well, and they lived together in the house for a number of years, so I can't imagine how interesting that might have been.
If walls could talk, right?
Yes, indeed.
Okay. So it is the Shades where you grew up?
Yes.
Cool. Okay.
I lived there my entire life, and I still, when you say home, that's the first thing that pops into my mind. It will always be my home. Predominantly, even if I don't live there full time, it will always be my home.
So tell us a little bit about growing up on the Shades. It sounds like it could be a Norman Rockwell picturesque.
It was very remote. I mean, that was the thing. We had a lot of visitors. My dad had many friends who all loved to come hunt and fish on the property.
I bet. Yeah.
So I grew up mostly around boys because I had no choice of being a tomboy, because it was only my dad's friends' sons who came to visit.
Oh boy.
So it was fun. It was I had a pack of labs that I grew up with that ran around on the property. I never had on shoes, and rode around on my four-wheeler. That was pretty much my existence.
That sounds pretty awesome from my point of view, quite frankly.
I was an extreme tomboy for sure.
So you were a hunter?
No, absolutely not.
Fisher?
Yes, very much so. Years ago, my dad was bush hogging in the field, and he accidentally ran over a fawn, and another one was injured. The sibling, and he brought it home, and we nursed it back to health. And so therein began a life of raising baby fawns. So therefore I could not possibly kill one unless I was very, very hungry.
Understandable. Very understandable.
So we actually had a research project on the property with Dow Chemical in the early 90s, where we had deer brought in from Missouri, and the LSU graduate students would come and work on their graduate projects.
Right.
So, at one time I had about 50 baby deer to feed.
Really?
So that was my first job.
Good heavens. That's a lot to keep track of, I would imagine.
Yeah, it was fun though. I mean, who could complain about feeding a bunch of baby deer every day? So
wow. My daughter would be right on board with you.
It was a lot of fun.
I would wait till they grew up, but probably would have a little different view of that. So, okay, you grew up here at the Shades. You grew up on the Shades, and I can't imagine it being anything but an enormous wonderland to be able to explore and to play. You had wooded areas, you had fields, you had ponds, I guess was where you would fish.
Yes, yep.
Okay.
Fish with my mom in the ponds.
Wow. Okay. Well, tell us a little about your mom. You talked about your dad.
Well, my mom was a city girl as well.
Really?
And so after my dad had lived on the property for about 20 years, he met my mom on a blind date.
Really?
And she came up to visit him. She was brought by a a mutual friend. And so they married within 6 months. They just connected very quickly and fell in love. And so my mom became a country girl as well. And my dad wasted no time in telling her, well, I need you to take care of the dairy because I'm going to work on this pulpwood company that I'm starting. And so therefore my mom would do things like pull calves. So she was indoctrinated rather quickly into the country life.
Like it. Man, how was her adjustment to that? Did she ever talk about that?
I think she enjoyed it. I think she was more suited to be in the country. She was very much a hard worker, and no challenge was anything beyond what she could accomplish. So she ran the tractors. She helped take care of the cows. She ran the milking machines. She fit right in as well. She just took right to it. Yeah.
That's incredible. That's really cool.
Yeah.
So, okay. So you Mom and Dad have become countrified and started their own businesses and ran the farm, and you came along and you were adventurous. I imagine you had a lot to do with the dairy as well, right?
Well, the dairy they sold the dairy when I was a young girl.
Okay.
So I remember I have vague memories of going there a few times, but it wasn't something that was a large part of my childhood. I think
What about the forestry part? You're involved in that?
Not really. My dad sort of was much older, an older parent.
Yeah.
He was actually 50 when I was born.
Wow.
So by the time I was old enough to kind of really understand what was going on, he was sort of phasing out of doing those things.
Okay.
So I think my name probably should have been Oops.
Oops. Well,
Oops.
maybe it should be welcome.
There you go.
There you go.
We'll take that.
It's all how you look at it.
That's right.
So you grew up, and then I think you talked before you had gone off to college.
Yes.
Okay. So
Yes.
you went, where was it?
Went to LSU,
Okay.
and I received my bachelor's degree in microbiology.
Okay.
So that shortly after that, I married my first husband, who was in medical school. So we moved to New Orleans for a couple of years for his schooling. And then,
So sort of a reverse culture shock for you, I would imagine.
right. It was very, very different.
Yeah.
I worked in the central business district, so
Good
I was in the
heavens.
middle of everything. But it was good. It was a good time to be there. We didn't have children yet,
Yeah.
so it was a nice start to our lives together. And then
Okay.
eventually we moved back to Baton Rouge when my husband was in residency at OK Long.
Okay. So then from the city, how did you get back to the Shades?
I don't think that I ever left. We would come back and visit and stay with my dad at least one weekend out of the month, each month. I mean,
Yeah.
he was aging, he was getting older. We wanted to spend time with him. It was a good getaway from the pace of life that we were experiencing
Yeah.
at that point.
Yeah.
So it's something I almost don't feel like I ever left,
Yeah.
because that connection is so strong there. So it's an odd thing to say, but I feel like that house calls people back. People who have visited will just come driving down the driveway and
Really?
say, I came here when I was a little boy. My aunt brought me and I had coffee on the porch, and I remember this and this happened, and I wanted to see if it was still here.
Wow.
So
That's
it's
cool.
like the property has a very strong pull to bring people back. And so, especially having lived there, it just doesn't feel like, I'm there. It will always be home.
Let's backtrack just a little bit, and you don't have to say how old you were, but back in the day, a movie was filmed here.
Well, actually, I was not born.
Oh, okay.
I missed all of the fun.
Oh, but I'm sure your mom talked about that.
Oh, very much so.
Okay.
Very much so. She was actually sick on the day that the representative from 20th Century Fox drove up to discuss with my parents that they would like to do a movie there. And so the lady who helped in the house was in the kitchen, and she got so excited over this news that she brought the man directly into my mother's bedroom for him to talk to her, and she was in the bed under the covers, and she said, "Please just go get him some coffee on the porch. I'll be there in a minute." So that was kind of the start of how this went. But it was a very, very exciting time from the stories that I was told. And I missed out on a lot, apparently. It was very interesting.
Well, let's talk about a little bit of the stories that you were told. The movie featured John Wayne.
Yes, John Wayne and Rock Hudson.
And Rock Hudson, that's right.
The Undefeated.
The Undefeated.
Yes.
Which is a Civil War story.
It's the end of Civil War.
Okay.
And then, so that is the beginning portion of the movie was filmed at the house, and it is the end of the Civil War. So there were several battle scenes on the property, and then they packed up and left and went to go wrangle horses to sell to the army. So then everything ended and it was all over. But it actually did go on for, I think, a couple months they were there. So it was a relatively, significant portion of time that my parents got to enjoy that whole circus that went on, because it was very interesting.
Well, John Wayne got to know you folks, didn't he?
Very much so.
They got to know him.
He didn't play a part. He was himself, was what my parents always said. He played himself. And so he was just very kind, very warm, very easy to talk to. He and my dad bonded quickly. My dad loved to say he would be standing there and he'd feel a hand in his back pocket and he'd say, "Damn it, Duke, stop stealing my chewing tobacco." And he'd say, "Why would I buy my own, George? I can just take yours." So they developed a special friendship.
Yeah.
My mom would cook for him. He would come and have dinner in the house with her, with my parents.
Right.
And of course, my mom absolutely loved that. That was the highlight of her life, I think. Well, not quite. Actually, after he was so grateful for the home-cooked meals, he asked my father if, after taping Wrapped, if he could bring my mother to St. Francisville to go antiquing.
Oh, okay.
And so my father was firmly convinced that my mother spent more time primping to get ready for this outing with John Wayne than she did for their wedding. But he came and picked her up in a car, and they went shopping, and they had lunch. And of course, he would get out of the car and, take her arm and walk her into the stores, and the ladies, everyone who saw him would scream and come running, and she just thought she was the most special thing on the planet, that she was with him for the day.
That's awesome. That is awesome.
Yeah, it was really neat.
That has to be probably the biggest highlight of your mom's life. Certainly.
Oh, absolutely.
But in all that, I know there are special things that happen with families on special properties, and as you said, the house is one that calls. What are some of the special events that you recall from childhood to now, or in anywhere in between?
I guess it's just, the family, the feeling of family that's there, the feeling of the generations that have come before you.
Yeah.
It's very unique to live in a home that's housed that many generations of your family.
Yeah.
So I guess that's really, for me, the thing that stands out the most. There's been little odd, creepy things that have happened over the time that might have been some other family members from the past just saying hello. But, for the most part, it was just a wonderful place to grow up.
Yeah.
To live life, without any fears or any concerns,
right?
Other than don't step on a snake. That was a bigger issue.
Well, that's anywhere in Louisiana, absolutely.
There you go.
So the Shades now is still a working tree farm.
Correct.
Right. As far as the tree farm is concerned, why is it important to keep the Shades as a tree farm?
I feel like it serves our family very well to keep the property in a very natural state. What is very important to me right now is that my son is learning these practices, and he's starting to take very much pride and ownership in in the management and the running of the property and learning what needs to be done and
Right.
how he can contribute in the next generation and starting now.
That has to be pretty special to have not only the generations before you but you can look forward now. Your
Right.
son's
Correct.
involved, and he will take the reins one day. And
Very much so. He has a very strong sense of pride of ownership.
yeah,
He identifies with the property. He loves to hunt. He loves to be there. And all hunting season, it's pretty much good luck getting him out of there. So
yeah. Don't blame him.
yeah, so it's wonderful to see that, to see his interests, to see him want to learn. We're wanting to get him enrolled in the next burn class so he can start helping with that on the property.
Very good.
So he's learning from our forester, Mr. Ron Ard, is teaching him. So it's a really good thing. It makes me very proud to see him get involved and be taking an active part in the property.
If you had advice for folks who are thinking about becoming a tree farm, what would you tell them?
Well, obviously, it's not something that you get into overnight. I was very blessed that my father was a good manager of the property, and so therefore he had the property cycling on different stages of growth, so that it's not something that you can just jump into and, oh wow, look at this, I have this big money maker or this, but it's something more you do for the love of the land and for the management of the property, and it's also very good for the natural population of wildlife. So I guess is don't be in a hurry.
That's good. That's good advice.
Don't be in a hurry.
Some of the things that we encounter at the Forestry Association is we'll get calls from the next generation. And unlike your son, who is involved and really sees the breadth of everything that is supposed to happen, that makes it sustainable, they're not quite sure. So if there's a new generation coming up and they're just getting forested land and they're not sure what to do, what advice would you give them?
The best advice that I can possibly say is bring in someone who truly understands and that can help you. Mr. Ron has come on board. Mr. Ron Ard is helping us as our forester now. He's so knowledgeable. He's had so many years of experience. And so he looks at the property and he sees areas that need improvement. He helps us with the newer, government projects, programs that will help us move forward with conservation. That's my best piece of advice is if you don't know, find that person who can help guide you through this. Don't make a rash, decision. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just going to sell this and get rid of it.
Yeah.
Don't do that. Be well informed, make your decision about how to move forward.
Jackie, one of the things I remember from the story that we published in Forest and People last year was you have an enormous collection of bells that actually that were handed down to you, right?
Correct.
Tell us a little bit about that.
They have existed in the home from the time of Eva Scott, who she actually received the first bell. It was her brother was fighting in World War I, and he sent her the bell, but prior to her receiving it, she had received notification that he had been killed in action.
Oh, wow.
And so out of nowhere, a box arrived, and it was this banged up, beat up little bell that he happened to come across, and he thought to send it to her. And so it was like a gift, a posthumous gift that she received from him. And it meant so much to her, and she was in grief. And so she kept that bell on the table, and she would ring that bell as her dinner bell. And so people associated bells with her. And from that point on, people just started sending her, any meaningful bell that they ran across. And it ended up being more than 1,000 of them that she received.
Man, do you still receive bells now?
I have not, actually. I am not known for the receiving of bells. I think it kind of ended with her. I did get one bell when I was a very little girl. from a family friend. It was at an antique, an outdoor antique kind of flea market sort of thing.
Yeah.
And I was looking at a bell, and he came up behind me, and I said, well, I should buy this because I was little. I didn't know that we didn't purchase any of the bells.
Yeah.
And he said, well, no, you can't buy it because all of the bells were given to you. So I'm going to buy it, and I will give it to you.
Oh.
So it's a little ceramic yellow bell. And that's the only one I have in the collection.
Well, that's cool. But you have all the other one. And that, well, I guess that will go to your son as well, will it not?
Yep. Everything in the house sort of stays in the house.
Yeah.
It's very interesting. I can remember in the drawer, something from my childhood, and I go open that drawer, and it is still there.
Wow.
I mean, everything in the house just stays. It's like time stops.
Yeah.
In that house. So it's very interesting. It's sort of like a time capsule, a living, evolving time capsule.
So after 200 plus years, it's going to continue. And
That's right.
maybe for another 200 plus years to go.
Let's hope so.
Yeah. Jackie Harvey, thank you so much for joining us. I know it's maybe an abbreviated program, but is there anything that I haven't asked you that you wanted to share about the Shades?
Oh, gosh. I guess it's, to me, the important thing is the many generations that have all contributed to keep this property together. It's just such a feeling of pride to be in the latest generation and trusted with the care of the property.
Yeah.
And it makes me even more proud to know that my son will continue that in my footsteps.
Jackie, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate taking time for us.
Thank you so much, Jeff.
Thank you for listening to Mind of the Forest. This episode was sponsored by First South Farm Credit. First South is your premier rural lender. With over 100 years financing timber and agriculture, they have the expertise you're looking for when financing rural property. If you're looking to purchase or refinance land, call your local First South Farm Credit office, or you can find them online at firstsouthland.com. If you'd like to learn more about sustainable forestry, the Sustainable Forestry Initiative, the LFA and its programs, and how you can be part of an organization that supports landowners, loggers, and the forest products industry in the state, check out our website at laforestry.com. You can send comments and suggestions to me by email at jzeringue at laforestry.com. That's jzeringue at laforestry.com. You can also check out the show notes for our contact information. You can subscribe to Mind of the Forest by clicking on the subscription button or the subscribe button on your favorite podcast app, and be sure to tap the notification button as well. That way you'll know when a new episode of Mind of the Forest drops each month. Thank you for doing that. We really do appreciate that. And remember, at the Louisiana Forestry Association, we're Mind of the Forest for you.